I'm not the kind of man who takes vacations. I always thought resting was for people who had the luxury of being bored, but after months of barely sleeping, Joanna said I was becoming unbearable. She told me I needed to breathe air where people are actually alive, and bought me a ticket to Jamaica before I could even argue. At first, I kind of liked the idea. I arrived on a sunny Saturday with the smell of rum in the air. I stayed at a simple beach hotel, the kind with colorful towels and loud music playing all the time. I spent the first 2 days pretending to be just another tourist. Cold beer, hot sand, quick glances from strangers. I didn't sleep much, but for the first time in a while, I didn't have nightmares. On the morning of the third day, I heard the news on the beach bar TV. They were talking about a storm forming in the Atlantic, Hurricane Melissa. Locals talked about it casually, saying, "These things pass quickly." I wanted to believe them. By nightfall, the wind was already bending the palm trees, and the sea had swallowed up the strip of sand where just hours earlier, kids had been running around. When the official alert came, the hotel handed out flyers asking people to stay calm. They said we'd be moved to a bigger resort, built to withstand any storm. Nice name, Hilton Rose Hall Resort. A bus took us there before sunset. The resort felt like another world. Glass doors, well-kept gardens, staff smiling like nothing was about to fall apart. At check-in, they gave out colorful wristbands and promised 24-hour buffet service. Most tourists rushed to the bars. I chose the silence of my room. From the balcony, I watched the sky change color. Thick clouds covered the sun, and the air felt heavy, electric. I felt the first thunderclap deep in my chest, like an ancient warning. I thought of Joanna and how hard she'd laugh seeing me stuck in a paradise about to be wiped off the map. The first gusts came after midnight. The room's window shook and the glass hummed. The lights flickered twice. I got up, looked down the empty hallway, and decided to go to the lobby. The elevator wasn't working. The doors opened just a few inches and jammed. I took the stairs, counting each step softly. The wind sound was steady, a distant roar. When I reached the ground floor, I noticed half the building was already without power. The main bar was still open. A generator kept a few lights glowing, casting yellow shadows on the bottles. There was a bartender, Latino, with a tired smile, cleaning glasses like the world outside wasn't falling apart. "Long night, huh?" I said, just to break the silence. He nodded without looking up. "The storm's just getting started, sir." That's when I saw her. She was sitting at the bar with a glass of rum between her fingers. Her blonde hair was tied up carelessly, and she wore a dress far too light for that wind. The dim light made her skin look like porcelain. For a moment, I thought she was just another tourist who'd had too much to drink and stayed behind. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She turned slowly, her blue eyes meeting mine. Who could, with all this noise? Her accent was hard to place, a mix of American and Old British. Her voice had a calm, almost hypnotic rhythm. She sat beside me and the air seemed to shift in temperature. We talked, just small stuff. She said her name was Annie and that she was traveling alone, taking some forced time off. I laughed. The coincidence was just too good. I told her the same story, leaving out everything that really made up my life. I said I worked with airplane engines, that I needed a break, that Jamaica was my temporary escape. All lies. She gave me a sideways look like she already knew. "So we're both on the run," she said, raising her glass in an imaginary toast. The rum burned on the way down. Outside, the wind was hitting the windows harder and harder. For a moment, the generator failed. Everything went dark. All I could hear was the wind. It sounded like footsteps running down the hallway. The lights came back on. The chair next to me was empty. I blinked, confused. She reappeared a second later, coming out from behind the bar, smiling. "We were out of ice," she said. Nothing could have sounded more normal. Still, my heart was racing for no reason. We stayed there until the bar closed. We talked about cities we'd been to, music we liked. Around 3 in the morning, the bartender said he had to close up. Annie and I walked together down the hallway. The emergency light blinked red, and with each blink, the world disappeared for a second. "What do you do when the wind stops?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation going. "I wait for the next storm," she said, not looking at me. When we reached her floor, we said goodbye with a quick smile. I walked into my room. The silence felt strange, heavy. The window vibrates. The wind howls. The generator fails again. For a moment, all that exists is the sound of the rain hitting the walls, like impatient fingers asking to come in. I light a candle, sit at the edge of the bed, and think that maybe Joanna was right. I did need to rest. But as I watch the candle flame flicker, I'm sure there's something in the air besides the storm. And somehow, Annie felt it too. And hey, before the storm picks up, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Trust me on this. It's not superstition, it's basic survival logic. They say people who stick around till the end of these stories are 87% more likely to stay sane during a hurricane. Okay, maybe I made that stat up. But let's be real. Clicking a subscribe button is way easier than facing 150-mile-per-hour winds, right? So hit that button, turn on the bell, and secure your digital shelter. Because if chaos is coming no matter what, the least we can do is make sure the story's worth it. The second day at the resort started off strange, and it wasn't just because of the storm. The wind seemed to come from every direction, and the room's windows were shaking like something was hitting them from the outside, trying to get in. I went down to the lobby and noticed that half the lights weren't working. The generator kept failing at regular intervals like a tired heartbeat. Breakfast was set up, but there was a long line of hungry people. The guests whispered in small groups. A staff member walked by quickly with a radio clipped to his chest, the device hissing. The smell of coffee was strong, and the air felt thick and muggy. I sat by the window and watched the sea twisting outside. The beach had disappeared, and the horizon was covered in white mist. That's when I noticed the security guard, tall, wearing a black vest, walking fast down the hallway of the East Wing. Minutes later, I saw him behind me, crossing the lobby in the opposite direction. Same hurried steps, same blank expression. He didn't even glance around. The generator cut out, silence filled the lobby, and the tension in the hotel grew. That's when I met Robert Kingsley, a gray-haired man with thick glasses, a worn leather briefcase, and a clear American accent. He said he was a history professor, specialized in myths and legends. He was staying in room 237 and seemed like the kind of man who tries to make sense of the unexplainable. He talked about how the Caribbean is full of stories about slavery, magic, and twisted faith, and how every island has its own version of the woman who comes back to kill her husband. Here, they call her the White Witch of Rose Hall, he said, flipping through some notes. A kind of warning myth. They say she shows up when the storms roll in. You think any of these stories are true? I asked. Not true, he replied, smiling. But useful. People need monsters to explain what they don't understand. Kingsley paused for a moment. Then he smiled again and adjusted his glasses. Of course, it's just folklore. No human witch survives through time. Only people's fear does. At the table next to us sat the Liu couple, Clara and David, newlyweds, whispering about going back to their room. They looked young, unsure, but were trying to laugh it off. She was filming the rain through the window, and he said it would make a great story to tell their grandkids. You should enjoy it, I said. Not everyone gets to survive a hurricane with free coffee. They laughed, a bit uneasy. The woman looked at me with a mix of kindness and nerves. There was fear in her eyes even though she tried to hide it. Later, while I was looking for the manager, I ran into Mr. Thompson in the hallway near the front desk. He was a thin man in a gray suit, hair perfectly combed. The kind of person who seems born to say, "Everything's going to be fine." "Mr. Myers, right?" he asked, as if he already knew my name. "That's me. I just wanted to know when we'll be able to leave." "Hard to say. The government advises staying sheltered. The road's not passable. We have generators and supplies. There's no reason to worry." "No reason to worry?" The words sounded rehearsed. The lights flickered again and died. The automatic doors opened by themselves and the wind rushed in, blowing papers and curtains around. Mr. Thompson didn't move, as if he hadn't noticed anything. Then, in an automatic gesture, he buttoned his jacket and walked away. I stood there for a while, watching the rain come in and the floor glisten. A woman screamed from one of the upper floors. The sound echoed through the lobby and faded away. When I looked toward the stairs, I saw the security guard. the same one as before, rushing upward. I could have sworn he just passed by me seconds earlier, going the opposite direction. By late afternoon, the whole resort felt like a dark aquarium. The closed windows muffled the sound of the sea, and the wind hit in steady intervals, like an invisible clock. I walked through the halls, trying to understand the place. The lights blinked in different rhythms, each floor with its own pulse. On the third floor, I heard children's voices, laughing, calling someone. "Mommy, Mommy." The sound came from inside the walls, or maybe from an open room. The laughter stopped. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. The hallway felt narrower. I opened the door to room 309 on impulse, but there was no one there. Just the curtains moving and an open suitcase on the floor. I closed it again. I walked past the pool area. Clara and David Liu were sitting at the edge, staring at the still water. She asked if the lights always flickered like that. I said I had no idea. They laughed, like laughter was a way to chase the fear away. Back in my room, the power failed again. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The mirror vibrated slightly. I figured it was the wind, but I felt a presence which quickly faded. That night, I heard footsteps in the hallway for hours. Slow, steady, pacing back and forth, like someone patrolling the floor. When I opened the door, only the sound of rain answered. The hotel felt like it was breathing heavy, and for the first time I started to think I wasn't the only one still awake. The storm didn't let up all day. The wind slammed hard against my room's window, and each gust sounded like a warning. I had tried to sleep, but rest came in short bursts, full of sounds that might have just been the hotel creaking, or maybe not. I saw Annie again in the late afternoon in the lobby. She was leaning against the bar, drinking something clear from a small glass. The bar was empty, and Miguel wasn't there. She saw me and smiled with a tired look, like she hadn't slept well either. "I thought you ran off," she said. "And missed the chance to face a tropical apocalypse with company?" "No way," I replied, smiling. She laughed, and for a moment, the muffled sound of the wind seemed to fade. We stood there for a while, watching the rain fall against the glass wall, not saying a word. Sometimes silence is the right kind of conversation. We went up together when the generator started failing again. The elevator was out of service, so we took the stairs. The hallway felt darker than I remembered, and the air smelled damp like mold on an old wall. The lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then came back on with a faint electric hiss. "Do you believe in ghosts, Steve?" she asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I looked at her. "I think I've seen just about everything." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "That's the kind of answer someone who believes would give." "It's the answer of someone who doesn't like to be caught off guard," I said. We laughed, but the sound felt strange, swallowed by the hallway. We walked toward the closed-off wing of the hotel where the doors were chained up with thin links and signs that read, "Maintenance." Annie said she wanted to explore, that boredom kills faster than the wind. With each step, the floor creaked. The air got colder. The smell of mold grew stronger. "Feels like no one's been here in years," I said. "Maybe they're waiting for the right moment," she answered, and her smile didn't make it clear if she was joking. We reached a door that was slightly open. I pushed it gently. The room inside was untouched, but there was a thin layer of dust over everything, like time had stopped. The lamp flickered on its own, turning on and off. In the bathroom, the faucet dripped at a steady rhythm. "They call this historic luxury," I muttered. Annie ran her finger across the fogged-up mirror, leaving a clear streak. When she turned to me, her reflection took a second longer to follow. I swear I saw it. Then I figured it must have been the flickering light. We stepped back into the hallway. The sound of the wind blended with something else farther away. Then a scream. A moment later, someone screamed again, louder this time, followed by silence. We looked at each other. "Probably just a guest," I said, trying to convince myself. "Then let's go see," she replied, already walking. We followed the sound down a side hallway. The walls were damp and the air smelled like salt and rust. The lights failed again, blinking in sequence like electric dominoes. Suddenly, we saw movement ahead. 2 girls, small, maybe 8 years old. White dresses, bare feet. They were standing hand in hand in the middle of the hallway. "Hey," I called without thinking. Where are your parents? They turned at the same time like a mirrored image. Their faces were far too normal, far too calm. Lost, one said. So is everyone, the other added. I took a step forward. Annie grabbed my arm. Do you need help? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They looked at each other and smiled, a smile that seemed mischievous. The light above them blinked once, then twice. I looked up, and when the light settled, only Annie and I were in the hallway. The girls were gone. I started, but my voice cracked. I saw them too, Annie said before I could pretend otherwise. We stood there, staring at the spot where the girls had been. The hallway felt smaller, tighter, like the hotel was watching us. Let's go back, I said. We walked back in silence. The lights went out behind us as if the darkness was following. When we reached the lobby, Miguel was there, leaning over the bar, wiping the same glass as always. Did you hear the screams? I asked. He looked up, confused. Screams? No one screamed, sir. I looked at Annie. She just pressed her lips together. Miguel went back to cleaning the glass, the same slow motion as before. We went back to her room together. The wind picked up, and the rain started falling hard again. The walls shook with every thunderclap. Annie stood close, so close I could smell her perfume. Sweet, something between flowers and smoke. Stay with me tonight, she said, without hesitation. I wanted to say something, but the words stuck. When she rested her head on my shoulder, my whole body relaxed like it was following something bigger than me. We stayed there, in the blue half-light of the lightning, the sound of the rain drowning out the rest of the world. Neither of us said another word. After that, I'm not sure what happened. I only remember her touch, the coldness of her skin, and the warmth that followed, the rhythm of the storm moving with ours. It was beautiful, and too good. I woke up hours later. Annie wasn't there. The sheet wrinkled, the bed still warm. I whispered her name. Nothing. There was a scent in the air, sweet and strange, like a flower wilting slowly. I got up, looked for signs of her. Nothing but an empty rum glass on the nightstand. Night fell quickly. The rain stopped for a while, but the sky stayed heavy, gray as if the island had stopped breathing. The hotel floor was damp, the air too cold for a tropical place. I had already lost track of how many days we'd been stuck there. At breakfast, Clara and David Lou seemed cheerful, too young to let anything bring them down. She was wearing a blue swimsuit, and he had on a floral shirt that clashed with the gloomy mood. They talked about swimming again to shake off the worry. I tried to talk them out of it, but Clara just laughed. No one dies inside a resort, Steve, she said confidently, especially one with a heated pool. David winked in on the joke, and the two walked off hand in hand laughing. I stayed seated, watching the drizzle start again, and thought that maybe laughter was the only cure for fear. But fear doesn't go away out of stubbornness. Later, I went down to the indoor pool area. When I opened the glass door, the warm air from the heated water rose up around my legs. The water rippled under the reflection of the lightning, a blue glow that seemed to pulse. Through the glass wall, I saw the Liu couple in the pool, playing, splashing each other. The sound echoed through the enclosed space, and for a moment, it was a beautiful sound to hear. Then something changed. The warmth from before was replaced by a sudden chill. The laughter stopped. In the far corner of the pool near the edge, there was a man standing there. Pirate clothes, a dark coat, wet pants, old boots. A silver hook where his left hand should have been. He shouldn't have been there. But he was. His face was pale, like wet wax. His eyes were deep, too dark. He was staring straight at Clara and David, who didn't seem to notice. "Hey!" I shouted. The pirate turned his face toward me slowly. His gaze cut right through me, cold as ice. Then he lunged at Clara Liu. The sound of the impact was heavy. The water surged high enough to hit the ceiling. Clara screamed. David dove under, trying to reach her. For a moment, I could see their legs thrashing in the water. I ran toward the edge of the pool, but by the time I got there, the storm inside the water had stopped. Then came silence. The surface of the pool moved slowly, and then the impossible happened. The water began to drain, swirling at the center like it was being pulled down a giant drain. In less than a minute, the bottom was exposed, dry, cracked. And there they were, the bodies of Clara and David Liu, side by side, pale and still. The pirate was gone. I stood there, frozen, not sure if I should run, scream, pray. My head was pounding. I looked around. Nothing. No sign of another guest. The hotel felt dead. I ran to the front desk but found no one. No Thompson, no Miguel. Only Annie in the lobby sitting alone staring out at the rain. When I got closer, she noticed. "What is it?" she asked. That's when I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, just tightening her grip on the glass she was holding. When I finished talking, she gently touched my arm. I took her to the pool area, but there was nothing there. No water, no pirate, no Liu couple, just a dry, cracked pool. I saw 2 bodies, Annie. They were right there. Maybe this hurricane is getting to your head, Steve. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. I didn't answer. I just wanted to get out of there. So I went back to my room carrying nothing but the frustration of not being able to save Clara and David Liu. That's when I saw it. In the mirror behind my reflection, a woman's shadow. Still, staring right at me. I turned quickly. Nothing. Just the sound of the wind and the echo of my own heartbeat. I looked at the mirror again. The surface was still trembling like it was breathing. I stepped back slowly, feeling the cold spread through my body. Sat down on the bed and listened to the storm, the distant sound of thunder and something else. Footsteps in the hallway, and that flipped the switch in me, the hunter's instinct. I thought of Clara and David, of the water draining, of the pale bodies. The hotel felt like it was feeding off silence. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fall back asleep. The next morning came without light. The windows were covered in sea spray and grime, and the sky was a solid block of gray that felt bottomless. I no longer knew if it was Sunday or Monday. All I knew was that Clara and David were still dead. I went to the front desk looking for the manager, but the counter was empty. No staff, no guests. The phone didn't work. The silence in the hotel weighed on my chest. When I glanced back toward the lobby, I noticed a door slightly open next to the elevator. Above it, an old, dusty sign, "Library, restricted access." I pushed the door open. The air inside was cold and thick, smelling of old paper and dampness. There were tall shelves filled with books on colonial Jamaica, slavery, and records of old families. The lights flickered, and each flicker felt like a sigh coming from the walls. I sat at a nearby table and started flipping through a worn leather-bound album. The pages held yellowed photographs. The Rose Hall plantation, slaves in the cane fields, white mansions under the sun. On one of the last pages, I saw a portrait. A woman. Delicate face, blonde hair, light eyes. The same smile I knew. The name was written in firm cursive. Annie Palmer, 1820. The text just below was a cold summary of a grotesque life. It is said that Annie Palmer, known as the White Witch of Rose Hall, murdered her 3 husbands and countless slaves using necromancy spells and blood enchantments. She was believed to be searching for immortality, trapping souls to prolong her own existence. She was killed by a vengeful lover and buried beneath the mansion's foundations. I closed the album and leaned back in the chair. Her name seemed to echo in my head, pounding in time with the distant sound of the wind. Annie Palmer. I stood up and started searching for more records. I found a newspaper clipping from 1923. Rose Hall Great House. Restoration underway. Visitors report screams of men and children, and strange occurrences. With every page, the hotel felt more alive. The walls seemed to breathe with me. The lights flickered. A snap. A book fell from a shelf on its own. The cover opened on the floor. Inside, a symbol drawn by hand. A circle with 3 vertical marks in the center. I left the library with the album under my arm. The hallway was darker than before. The generator must have been failing again. I found Annie sitting in the lobby, staring out the window. When she saw me, she smiled that calm, easy smile, like nothing in the world was wrong. "You disappeared," I said. "I needed to think." she replied, crossing her legs. Is everything okay? I dropped the album on the table in front of her. Does this look like you? She tilted her head, studying the photo. Pretty, she said. But every blonde woman looks the same in old portraits. Annie Palmer. Common name. 3 dead husbands, slaves murdered, immortality spells. She laughed, a real laugh. You need a good night's sleep, Steve. It's just a legend. But the smile didn't reach her eyes, and for a second I swear I saw her reflection in the glass move half a second late. The wind hit hard, and the sound of the hurricane filled the hotel. The glass doors opened on their own, and the cold air rushed in. Outside, palm trees were bent all the way to the ground. I saw it, I said, not even sure why I kept talking. I saw the Liu couple die. I saw the pool drain. Fear does things to us, she said flatly. Sometimes our minds play tricks. The hotel shook with thunder. The lights went out. Everything went dark. A distant scream of terror cut through the air. I ran to the hallway. The sound was coming from upstairs. I climbed the stairs, stumbling in the dim light. Hallway 200 was flooded, water running across the floor. The emergency light blinked red. The scream came again. Room 237. I knocked on the door. No answer. I kicked it in. The room was empty. And from under the bathroom door, hot steam was spilling out. So I went in. In the tub next to the door, the water was murky, almost black. That's when I saw Professor Robert Kingsley's body, lifeless in the bathtub, mouth open, eyes gone. His chest sunken in like something had sucked the air right out of him. A chill ran down my spine, but I'd seen worse. Standing facing away from me was a naked woman. Her long, soaked hair clung to her back and shoulders. Her skin glistened under the bathroom's flickering light, a cold, sickly glow. Ma'am? I called out firmly, fingers tightening around the handle of the knife strapped to my back. Are you all right? She turned slowly. The face came first. Deformed, swollen skin, eyes milky white. Dark veins spread across her translucent body. And when she smiled, chunks of flesh slipped off her jaw and hit the wet floor. Oh shit, I muttered. I stepped back, and she came at me. The sound was like mud being stomped on, heavy and wet. Suddenly, the bathroom steam thickened, and the mirror behind her fogged up. She let out a scream, a sharp, deep sound no human could ever make. Before I could react, she launched herself at me. The impact felt like getting hit by a bus. I was thrown across the room, crashing into the nightstand, which shattered on impact. I rolled to the side, coughing, and drew my hunting knife. All right, Water Witch, I growled. You want to dance? Let's dance. She lunged again. I spun and drove the blade into her shoulder. The flesh tore with a sound like ripping rubber, spilling a dark, thick liquid that reeked of brine and rot. She screamed, but didn't back off. Her hand slammed into my chest, hurling me against the wall. The knife dropped. The mirror behind me shattered. On the shelf, cleaning alcohol. I grabbed it and threw the liquid at her. Let's go, sweetheart. Light it up for me. I struck a match and tossed it at her. The fire exploded the moment the flame touched the alcohol covering her. She screamed, her body twisting, her face melting. The sound was unbearable. When the fire burned out, there was nothing left but ash and the smell of salt water. I picked up the knife, breathing hard. The cracked mirror reflected my face, covered in blood and soot. Nice resort, I muttered. Hope they're not charging for room service. If the attack in room 237 gave you chills, just wait until you check out the Idea Factory. It's an original project I created to help you come up with ideas so good, even a blank page would need an exorcist. That's where all the theories, wild thoughts, and scares are born. The ones that turn into stories like this and bring this whole universe to life. Click the first pinned comment and check out the Idea Factory now. Go on, before the hurricane blows this chance far, far away. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was still in hunter mode. I sat on the bed for hours, staring at the clock stuck at 3 a.m. The candlelight cast shadows on the walls, dancing like they had a will of their own. Annie hadn't appeared since the day before, and part of me believed she had left, if leaving that place was even possible. That's when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, steady, measured. I stood up. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. My heart pounded in my chest. The doorknob turned on its own. She walked in, Annie, but not the same as before. She was wearing an old white dress, laced like it was made of veil and dust. The fabric dragged along the floor, and her blonde hair, loose, fell over her shoulders. Her face looked calm, almost serene, but her eyes seemed lighter, almost silver. "The storm is over," she said, in a whisper that sounded like two voices. "It's time to seal what we started." "Seal?" I asked, my voice rough. "What are you talking about?" She held out her hand. "Come with me, Steve. Everything's ready." I tried to ask more, but my body didn't listen. There was something in her gaze, a glow that pulled at something inside me. I followed her down the dark hallway, guided by the pale light coming from her dress. The emergency lights blinked red. With every step, the hotel changed. The carpet looked older. The walls were covered in mold. The paintings hung crooked. The air felt thick, like we were walking inside a bad dream. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To the beginning and the end," she replied without looking back. "To our altar." The chapel was in the old wing, behind the library. I had seen the door before, chained shut. Now it was open. Inside, the air was cold and the room looked frozen in time. The candles were lit, hundreds of them, spread across the pews. At the altar, a cross covered with a white cloth and wilted flowers. The ceiling dripped, and the sound of water hitting the floor marked the time of an invisible clock. Annie walked up to the altar and turned to face me. "You came. I knew you would." "What is this, Annie?" I asked. "What's happening?" She smiled, a smile too sweet, too dangerous. "True love sets you free, Steve. And that's what we were made for, to break the cycle. We just need to seal our fate, together." Annie took a step toward me. The sound of her feet echoed like the floor was hollow. "Marriage," she said. "It's all that's missing." For a moment I thought she was joking, but there was something in the air, a force that made the candles flicker. "This is madness. Madness is running from eternity when it chooses you." She raised her hand. In it, a gold ring, old, with a red stone at its center. "Put it on, and everything will end." I stepped back. "Annie, whatever this is, it's not love." Her smile vanished. The wind returned, sudden and violent, blowing through windows that didn't exist. The candles bent and her dress began to move as if it were alive. "To refuse a lady is a sin, Steve Myers," she said, her voice lower, deeper. "And to refuse a witch is a death sentence." She lifted her face. Her eyes turned white. The veins beneath her skin turned black and pulsing. Her skin stretched, pale like cracked wax. Her body shook. Her hands opened wide, and the candlelight burst into flames. The cross on the altar crashed to the ground with a metallic clang that echoed through the entire chapel. And she changed. This wasn't the Annie I had known. "I gave you the chance," she said, her voice now layered, as if many people were speaking at once. "Now you'll stay with me forever." She raised her arm, and the floor cracked beneath us in thin, jagged lines. The candles started blowing out one by one, like the air was being sucked from the room. I felt pressure in my chest, like something was trying to pull the breath out of me. I struggled to breathe. "You don't understand," she screamed. "I loved, and I died for love." The light flickered, and for a second, she was herself again, the woman I knew, blonde, sad, her eyes full of guilt. "Help me, Steve," she whispered. "Please." But the next voice was cold, slicing through. "Or die with me." The chain around the altar snapped on its own. A gust of wind slammed me into the pew. The candles flared back to life, now burning with blue flames. Annie was floating above the ground, her dress moving like water. I tried to stand. "You're not real." "I'm all that's left." She came toward me, blackened hands stretched out, clawed at the ends. I felt the air compress. Sound vanished. Her mouth opened in a scream, and the air around us vibrated. For a moment, her face returned to normal. Human, confused, and beautiful. "Why don't you love me?" she asked, like a lost child. "Because love doesn't trap anyone," I said, not knowing where the strength to speak came from. "And what you want isn't love." Her veins darkened again. The smile returned, sharp and cruel. "Then it will be pain." The storm roared outside. The ceiling trembled, and the entire hotel seemed to wake up, and I knew the worst was still to come. The floor of the chapel shook as the Witch of Rose Hall raised her arms. The candles burned blue and the smoke formed a circle around me. I tried to run, but something invisible pulled me back. When I looked down, I realized I was trapped inside a dark ring drawn on the floor. The smell was sharp, like burnt sulfur and salt. "Black salt," she said, with a smile far too calm. "No man escapes a promise made to the witch who chose him." The flames rose higher. Annie stepped closer and the air grew heavier, hard to swallow. The sound of the wind now came from inside the chapel, swirling around us. "Let's finish this, Steve. The ritual must be completed." "You're insane," I muttered. "This isn't love. It's the only kind that lasts." She held up the gold ring, now covered in black veins that seemed alive. "After this, we'll be one." She began chanting something in a language I didn't recognize. The words echoed like muffled thunder, and the black salt on the floor glowed with its own light. I felt my body grow heavier, like something was trying to pull something out of me. I remembered my father's medallion, the only thing I'd always carried. An old symbol with Latin inscriptions on the back. I tore it from my neck and gripped it tight. "Non vincit tenebras," I whispered. "What did you say?" Her voice echoed in multiple tones. "Darkness doesn't win." The words came out on their own, as if they'd always been there, waiting. The edge of the circle cracked. The salt burned in black flames. The wind surged harder. Annie stepped back, startled. "No!" she screamed, and her voice came from everywhere at once. She threw me across the chapel, some kind of telekinetic force slamming me onto the altar. I landed on top of an iron box, etched with runes drawn in dried blood. Inside it, a heart, dry, mummified, but beating. The sound was faint, muffled like a distant drum. "Don't touch that," she screamed, her voice distorted, half human, half beast. "So this is what's keeping you alive," I said, holding the heart. She floated toward me. The veins had spread across her face and her white eyes glowed like headlights. Her hands, long and skeletal, reached for me. The witch screamed, and the sound that came out of her was pure animal. "Give it back!" she roared. "You don't understand what it means to die for love." The heart throbbed hard, hot in my hand. I grabbed the flask of rum I always carried, the same one my father used to say was salvation for any kind of hell. I poured the liquid over the heart. Annie stepped closer. "Steve, please." Her voice shifted, soft again. "It's all I have left. I can give you everything. Eternity, love, power." Striking the match felt like breaking a vow. The flame lit up her face for a second, and it was human again, sad and beautiful. Then I threw the fire onto the heart. The sound that followed was the sound of the world breaking apart. The flames turned blue. The wind tore through the chapel, ripping out windows, doors, and pews. The floor cracked. The walls split open. Her dress unraveled into pieces of light. Her body started to fracture, like porcelain cracking from the inside. She screamed my name. The ceiling partially collapsed. The candles were blown out by an invisible gust. The heart burst in my hand, turning to dust that the wind carried away. Annie, or what was left of her, floated for a moment, her body already reduced to ashes. Her eyes found mine one last time, and then she was gone. The hurricane swept through the chapel like a beast. Everything spun: wood, glass, dust, light. I covered my face with my arms and braced myself. I stayed like that so long, I passed out. When I opened my eyes, Hurricane Melissa had already passed. The resort was in ruins. Shattered windows, palm trees torn out by the roots, pieces of roof scattered across the beach. I walked through the wreckage, still dizzy, trying to understand why I was still alive. The air smelled of salt, smoke, and mold. No human sounds. No bodies. Water had flooded the lobby, and the floor had become a shallow mirror reflecting the gray sky. At the destroyed altar of the chapel, I found something buried in the mud and debris. Annie's necklace charred, the red stone split in two. I picked it up. It was still warm. I left the hotel without looking back. The road leading to the coast was covered in branches, glass, and sand. The sun was beginning to rise over Jamaica, golden, calm, as if the world had decided to forget that a Category 5 hurricane had torn through it just hours earlier. The breeze now was gentle. For a moment, I swear I heard a laugh. Brief, sweet, mixed with the distant sound of the waves. But maybe it was just the wind, remembering what happened. If you've made it this far, you already know. Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments what you thought of this story. What worked, what surprised you, and what kind of supernatural case you want to see here next. And before you go, I left a video up here in the card so you can jump straight into another story. One of the darkest ones I've ever told. Click on it, because this video's about to end, and your next hunt is waiting. I'll meet you there.